It's Hello Future Buzz, and it's the 6/23/2022. So I'm really excited to have our special guest, Eric Faust, here of Dropper NFT. So let's also get Brandon on here. Hi, Charles. How are you today? Are you good?
I'm good. How about you,
Good.
Elizabeth?
And we're also going to welcome Josh Olin, who is a gamer in his own rights, having launched a couple of games, one called Call of Duty.
The uh, the
Yama.
unremarkable.
Nice to see you, Josh. And Eric, welcome to Hello Future Buzz Spaces. We're really excited to have you.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
And you've got to tell us all about what's going on in New York. I believe you're there, aren't you?
Yeah, you might be able to hear the sirens from my hotel room here. Yeah, we've been at here at NFT NYC all week. Had a talk with Alex Russman and a few other folks from building on HBAR, part of the HBAR Foundation today. That went really great. So yeah, just wrapping up my final day in New York here.
Well, congratulations is due to you and to Dropper for securing a grant on the HBAR Foundation. That must have been a really exciting day for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've built on a few different chains. We've tried a lot of different things to try and figure out what worked. And I think when we finally came to the conclusion that Hedera was, essentially the best fit for what we were trying to accomplish, made it a no-brainer. And we're super excited to be working with Alex and the HBAR Foundation as well.
Well, Alex is a great guy to be working with. There's no question about that. So, for those of us who don't know, would you like to explain what your gaming NFT platform is on Hedera?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, Dropper is a gaming launchpad first and foremost, which will eventually bake onto it an NFT marketplace that essentially will be able to silo down a little bit, which is pretty exciting. When I say silo down, I just mean people who build games off of it will be able to white label it to create sort of simple, sophisticated solutions for their digital assets. What we're really trying to do is bring on what is relevant in gaming culture today. I think unlike platforms like Fractal over on Solana, what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 gaming, rather than try and reinvent the wheel with low latency blockchain games. I think that's where we differ. Really focused on bringing over current relevant gaming culture and really helping it evolve, and just basically create new ways and opportunities for gamers to interact, connect, and leverage what we know today as Web3.
Explain that a little bit further. The interplay between Web 2 and Web 3. You're trying to bring the Web 2 guys into Web 3, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we think about this is gaming culture isn't going to be reinvented. Like I think the way I perceive NFT games today is that there's a paradigm shift happening, and it's polarized, right? Like on one side you have Web 2, which is essentially like a rental system. The way I've always talked about this is if you own a Fortnite and you buy a skin, you can't move it, you can't do anything with it. So essentially it's a glorified rental. Whereas on blockchain games, I mean, they're creating, um, every piece of the game, from the land to the skins and everything in between, is really trying to be brought on chain, all at once. And I think those are the two poles, right? So on one side you have sort of this rental style current Web 2 world that does generate billions of dollars, and on the other side you've got Web 3 world, which essentially is trying to do it all at once. Like everything is going to be on chain. I think there's an in between place, and that's where we're trying to live.
Mm-hmm. And your background is maybe if you would go into that a little bit. What made you come into this space in your background that created the opportunity to create something new? I know you're an entrepreneur and you've launched other companies.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess as our story goes, I've been in crypto full time since 2018. I was there building a lot of the infrastructure for the ICO rush out of 2018. after everything crashed, this time, the same crash that just happened was very, very reminiscent to me of 2018. When everything crashed, basically we saw the future as blockchain gaming as was like the big opportunity. We launched in 2019 at TwitchCon and had in-game NFTs in a game called Mad Machines before anybody knew what an NFT even was. It's actually kind of it's a funny story that I can go into a little later, but we were doing in-game NFTs in 2019, trying to figure out how to do this. And what we were doing was basically creating a digital asset in a game that was linked to a content creator's likeness. So for instance, we had skins in this game that were basically like a creator's sort of inspiration. So for example, there was one creator called Kitty House Knife. She was sponsored by, I forget the pizza chain at the time, but basically we had like the pizza cutter as her weapon in the game as sort of like a fun play on both her sponsor and her own brand. So that in 2019, nobody knew what the heck an NFT was. It was
No, they didn't.
it didn't go very well, frankly, but it was a really, really cool experience. We learned a lot. So our background is basically blockchain gaming since 2019. We've pitched NFT marketplaces to some of the biggest games still today. Way back then, we basically were trying to bring games on chain when Wax and Engine and all those guys launched as well. We just realized really quickly that it wasn't going to be as simple as like going to like I don't know, an Activision Blizzard and saying, hey, let's put an NFT marketplace in your game. It's just that's just not realistic. Because they do make billions of dollars with their current model, which is pretty good. So the way we think about this, I think at the end of the day is our background has been trying to figure out this problem for the better half of the last 3 years, and the way we think about solving what we think is the future of blockchain gaming is starting with the culture, starting with gaming relevant culture, and then boiling it down from there.
Sometimes being too early is really it's harder than anything else in the world, because if you're a little bit too early, you're talking to people and they have no clue what you're saying. So you must have found that to be the case. I mean, I've said a lot of things to people. I mean, even in today's world, Hedera is still very early. So, to be that early in 2018 talking about NFTs, it must have been confusing the heck out of people.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like NFT has become a buzzword, right? Back then it was less about like pitching NFTs. It was basically trying to pitch a solution to make digital assets tradable in games. It's like the story I always tell is like I was like a 16-year-old kid once upon a time, and I played this game called Final Fantasy 11, and I sold my account when I got my driver's license for like I don't know, like $2,000. In between that and some bonds my grandma had gave me, I was able to buy my first car. I remember my dad coming downstairs being like, PayPal is calling me, like, why are you receiving a $2,000 transaction? So ever since then, it's sort of just been like, it's been like a mission of mine to say, hey, like, I think there's a way to monetize the time we spend digitally. I think there's really unique ways we can do that, both at like the game level. I think everybody just thinks like games are going to have NFT marketplaces. I don't know if that's the case. I think the way that they're going to do it is similar to activations that they do at an event, for instance, where they give out a special item or something like that. I think it's going to be a transition, not a change. And I think that's why I illustrate that those two poles that exist right now. There's the current Web 2 rental model, and there's this Web 3 everything on chain. I think for the Web 2 guys to get to that sort of utopian ideal that we all have for what Web 3 blockchain gaming is, it's going to be quite a long transition, and they're going to inch along rather than take giant leaps.
Well, I'm not so sure the Web 2 companies are thrilled about losing their business model to Web 3.
Well, I think they don't know how to. I don't think they're going to lose their business model. I think it's going to evolve. Like, I think the big thing is like you have to say, how are you going to make more money by adopting a Web3 type of model, like a Web3 incentive-based model with royalties built in on the sale of every digital asset, versus this rental model where you sell one skin or you sell a loot box, you have a loot box, there's three things in it. Like, why is that transition going to take place? I think there's some regulatory reasons why it might take place. I think there is some opportunity that says, the secondary asset market for for skins in, pick any game, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Call of Duty, when it's opened up and not quite as restricted as it is probably way more profitable. It just hasn't been sussed out yet, right? So I think you got to turn these guys from it looking like a threat to them to like a huge opportunity, and that's where we're really trying to put our focus, and that's where we put our focus for a long time. I have some crazy stories of companies we talked to back in 2019, 2020, just pre-pandemic, and they were close to doing different things in this space. Obviously, pandemic hit and changed a lot of things for everybody. So a lot of those conversations just ground to a halt. But the reality is, I think it's not a bad thing for these big guys. It's like the best thing that could happen, and they just got to and the way they capitalize on it is they're going to be inched along. They're not just going to like flip a switch and everything's an NFT in their game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Josh, go ahead.
The Call of Duty shout out. I appreciate that. I used to work in Call of Duty, and yeah, I think that So Eric, I have a question. Is Hedera am I correct in assuming that Hedera is kind of, well, I mean, it's a side chain, right? It's a bit smaller of an ecosystem, so there's probably not a lot of these types of projects on Hedera yet. Is that safe to say? Not even a lot of launchpads in general.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's right today, there's just not a lot of stuff on Hedera, right? Like, just in general, I would say that's a fair statement, right? Like NFTs, PFPs are just kind of coming on right now. The thing that Hedera has, and that's what I talked about in our talk today, was it has two things. We launched on Polygon first. We launched this kid named Clicks, his like NFT collection. He's like a top, maybe if not the top, one of the top 5 streamers on Fortnite. Signed to NRG, big esport guy, great superstar player, and we launched on Polygon. And we got so much pushback on the environment. His name's Clicks, CLIX. I think he's just at Clicks on Twitter and Twitch. So super cool kid. And we launched on Polygon, and we got so much pushback from the community that like the environmental piece was the hardest piece. Like there's a pushback of people being like, NFTs are bad for the environment. This isn't gonna work. There's a big pushback that was pretty surprising when we did that. We were I was pretty surprised about that. So that was one thing. The second thing that was really interesting was essentially the purchasing. Like it was early-ish Polygon days, so like purchasing on Polygon, like people were buying Ethereum, and they had to bridge it to Polygon. It was just like such a disaster for a mainly Gen Z community. So there's the two biggest problems that I saw, especially like trying to build on ETH. We played with Solana a little bit, was just transaction speed, right? Like transaction speed and this environmental thing that I didn't think was ever going to be a concern for gamers. I think it's ironic. Gamers have to be one of the biggest consumers of energy out of everybody. But the reality is that's like a big concern for them. So I think Hedera has this like kind of like thing narrative, or I guess it's a truth that's going for it. I highlighted that on the post is that its Hashgraph is environmentally efficient, and they buy carbon credits to offset when it's not, right? So that's a big win. So the environmental piece, you can take that out of the conversation, and it's a carbon neutral product, which, whichever side of that argument you are on, it doesn't really matter. It just kind of makes it a moot point, which is good. Number 2 is transaction speed. Hedera is just slick, man. Like when it comes to transactions, there's no like big like, you send Ethereum to a friend and you take a big gulp on the first few transactions you ever send. It sort of everyone can reminisce on that. So from our perspective, it's not that like all of a sudden everyone's just going to flip on Hedera or flip on Polygon. Like all these companies know Web3 is coming. They have to adapt to it. They're hiring people to look at it. And what the job of people like myself is kind of to be almost like this hybrid between technology enabler, so I make it really easy for these people to come on and try different things with Hedera, kind of like dip their toes in, if you will, and then also just almost be like a promoter of like, look guys, like you're gonna go try to build on this. Like we've built on this chain. Here's our experience. Here's what you're gonna encounter. And Hedera, just for whatever reason, they truly check those two boxes. So to answer your question, it's like it's less of like suddenly trying to flip a switch and bring on everybody all at once and do something fast. It's really just trying to say you create the technical pathway that you take yourself. Like you've done some stuff yourself, and then at the same time be able to champion it to say there's a reason why you'll build on this. It's because you're not going to be wanting to sit on, but no 16-year-old playing battle royale game X, Y, or Z is going to want to sit and wait for a transaction to settle. They want it instant. So those are the two things that really matter, and I think that's a really, it's like a competitive advantage for Hedera, compared to layer 2 solutions that are targeting gaming, etc.
That's what I'm drawn initially and instinctively to Hedera for as well. Hashgraph is very unique and just a key differentiator for sure. I asked the question just because. Well, I asked the question as sort of a trap, a preface to what really my objective here is, which is to just put some wisdom out there, put some experience out there that that I'm seeing from the Ethereum chain. That for all the Hedera's benefits, it's more of a philosophical, fundamental problem, not a technical problem. Which is what I just want you guys thinking about it as early as possible to try to handle it better, right? And we're kind of playing catch up, and we're kind of trying to put the genie back in the bottle a bit. But maybe you can come to the table with some. Maybe you've thought about this already. So I'll get to the point. The problem with making it too accessible. I mean, of course, the whole point of blockchain, the point of crypto, is to make things accessible, to remove gatekeepers and accessibility, democratization, yada yada. But the problem is very obvious when you just look at how many if it's too easy to deploy a token, and there's WordPress templatization for token building now, where anybody can launch a token. With like a graphical user interface, you don't need to know any solidity. You don't have to. Basically, what they're doing is they're saying you don't have to add any value, and you can launch a token and cause millions of dollars in chaos in the marketplace. And specifically when it comes to gaming, gaming is a very close place in my heart, right? There's a lot. Everybody thinks they can make a game, but or they can even make a part of a game or contribute to a game, but they can't. And the hard truth is, not everybody should launch a crypto project, and not everybody should launch a GameFi project because not everybody has. It's a problem I have too, but it's notorious in people. They tend to overestimate their own ability, and struggle with self-assessment and understanding. Oh, why am I trying to raise millions of dollars in an ICO when I've never managed a multi-million-dollar P&L before? Right? It's one thing when indie dev is just self-publishing on Steam, with a free Unity license, and you a few hundred people or 50 people download your $10 game. That's a very limited outlay of damage, right? But what I'm seeing is a huge new consequence that to launchpads in general. That if we make it too accessible and easy for people to just do something, the something isn't going to be exceptional, probably. And I don't know if you thought about this paradox.
No, I think the reason why we're focused on, and I'll add this when we can come around, because I know there's a lot of controversy when I said AAA gaming. But essentially, we want to cater to and focus on what I classify as AAA gaming, which is culturally relevant content, which means the top Twitch streamers, the top esports organizations that play the top titles. Everything else around that, Fractal, for instance, they view their platform as a Kickstarter for games. And the first thing they run into is a whole bunch of people who are hype men, really good at generating FOMO and get a bunch of people to buy digital assets, and then these guys got to go figure out. They're going like, I don't know, random marketplace websites to try and find game developers to make them a game next. That's one piece. The second piece is, even if they are good game developers, there's no reason that game is going to be a success as well. So I think the Kickstarter model for gaming is fundamentally broken, and that's what a lot of these guys are doing. And frankly, it's because they can make a lot of money doing that, right? Like there's an economic incentive behind this, but the whole thing that happens is you end up leaving people holding a piece of metaverse land that's worthless, or you just there's less value there. For the one hit you might have, you're going to have 1,000 failures, and you're banking on your community to bankroll that. And I think that's okay if that's what everyone knows they're doing. So I'm not against the model. I'm just saying, like, we're not trying to be a Kickstarter for every gaming project just to get some funding and come on and do an NFT game. Like, what we're saying is there's culturally relevant content, and we want to bring that culturally relevant content to Hedera. The way we're going to do that is a few different ways that I think are going to be really interesting, and that's why I alluded to, some of the stuff we're doing isn't around tokenization. It's around like bringing esports data on chain, and Hedera has really good tooling around us to enable that, like creating immutable ledgers of esports data that doesn't exist yet, and it all exists on wiki pages, gaming data, right? So that stuff is like, there's some low hanging fruit here that we're going to be able to capitalize on in the near term. But again, like, it's just like you said, I don't know if the future is just letting everybody try to build a game. And because we have this new, like, crazy decentralized system, I love free markets. I'm like a super pro free markets guy. But I think at the end of the day, there's a game being played. We have to fundamentally understand what the game is that you're playing. The game that we're playing is saying, we know Web 2 companies are going to come into Web 3, and Web 2 gaming companies see the opportunity. There's not one gaming company out there that doesn't see the opportunity with digital assets when they see, Bored Ape profile pictures valued at 100K plus. All of a sudden they're like, man, we don't have one asset in our game that's worth 100K plus. But what if we did? What would that look like? It's not like they're against that, right? But they are trying to figure out how do we make money doing that, and what's a sustainable model, and there's a regulatory piece here that we want to comply with. Like, you guys, I'm sure, are aware of like the loot box controversy that happened for years. It's still going on. Loot boxes are still a big target for regulators out there, and it's because they're basically like introducing gambling to kids, right? Like, I think that's the big push against the loot box. So the way we think about this is in a more, I guess you could say, capitalistic model that says, hey, how do we incentivize a few developers and publishers to try different things, leveraging our launchpad that are already doing culturally relevant things. So we're not trying to go after small projects making like super low latency games. We're not interested in doing that. What we are interested in doing is working with the biggest esports teams in the world, the biggest streaming stars in the world, who play the top titles in the world, to create digital experiences that I think give those big developers and publishers almost like a little proof of concept that they can look at and they can say, oh, hey, like, I sort of see where the opportunity is here, and then that maybe bleeds into, hey, we can try something in this space. So you kind of got to ease them into this and give them check a lot of boxes that are there's a lot of them, and they're it's taken us a while to try to figure out what those are. But that is also what has led us to building on Hedera and going off and obviously getting some grant funding to incentivize folks to come on our platform that we're going to curate early on here to enable them to do drops and go from there.
Though that's about your launchpad, but when you say you're also launching a marketplace, does that go along with the projects in the launchpad, or is that a separate, like, you'll be able to buy different NFT items that you can put into your own game?
No, when our marketplace comes out, and frankly, we're really focused on getting the launchpad first, because that's going to be able to enable us to curate a bunch of drops. Our marketplace will just be gaming specific. It'll play like they're not going to be locked to our marketplace. You'll be able to buy, sell, and trade these stuff on hash access, pending any potential regulatory stuff that might come up in the future, right? Like there is always like the asterisk there, just because we are playing in a highly regulated market. And that's the reason why a lot of these big gaming companies don't just jump into crypto and blockchain. And I think the one that had was Ubisoft, which did those NFTs in, I forget, was it Ghost Recon?
Ghost Recon, yep.
Jesus, yeah, and it was like a fundamental disaster. The fundamental disaster, if you actually go look at it, is the environmental piece. That was the biggest pushback from the community, if you just go look. So these are things that we're talking to different people within the gaming industry about, and talking about our own experience launching NFTs in the space. And I think that just creates an environment that enables them to have some experimentation, but also gives them a base kind of rule set that they feel comfortable being able to move forward in. Like obviously everybody wants to do NFTs in the biggest gaming titles in the world. That's like there's about 100 other people like me trying to do that. But I think what gets them there is when they see models that they can follow that are already within their industry. And I think how we're doing that, and what our strategy is to play my cards face up, is to work with the big esports orgs, to work with some of the top streamers, etc., to do some unique activations based on what we've learned from basically prior failures in the space.
Yeah, I was in a webinar this morning by Ari Redborn, who is with TRM Labs, and they had a big discussion today on their compliance and regulators from Washington, D.C. and the SEC. I can shoot that webinar recording on my timeline after the spaces, which was very interesting because they spent about half the time talking about how they're going to regulate NFTs and what is compliant with NFTs and what are staking with NFTs and how they're going to be handled. And there's a lot of talk in Congress these days about those kind of issues. So it's a big issue for us in the crypto world.
Yeah, I think loot boxes are still a target. If you go look, loot boxes are still a target of regulators. So I think that this whole space is, and after obviously the Luna, the Celsius, like winter is coming, right? Like we know that regulation is coming, and you can look at regulations two different ways, right? You look at it as like it's going to be a pain in the ass, which it certainly is going to be, and it's bad, et cetera, et cetera. But you can also look at it like, well, the people who adapt to the regulations quickest are going to be able to create the newest opportunities, and then hooray, everyone wins. And I think that's the way we think about this: is regulators aren't the end of the world. I worked in an e-commerce in my past life, and regulators, regulators created a current e-commerce environment. And e-commerce is pretty good. You can get anything shipped to you in a day or less, right? So I think if you look at regulation like it's a good thing, I don't know, there's a lot of opportunity here. And the people that have exploited, I think, the lack of regulation, they all die off, just like the 2018 ICO boom. All this stuff fades to black. Maybe a couple people get in trouble or whatever. But the vast majority of people are just left holding assets that are worthless, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to say, how do we actually create cool activations that are sure they are they a digital asset on a ledger? Yes, but is that the reason why you're purchasing them? No, there needs to be more to this than just like NFT, PFP icon. I think that's what we're really passionate about figuring out.
What I was going to say is, in general, the Hedera community is pro regulation, and I think one of the things that's happening right now is that we get the chance to shape the regulations and have our input within Congress, and by being in Hedera and helping them kind of shape the regulations that are happening. So I'm okay with regulations. Most of us are. We just need guidance, and I hope they do a good job at it. But we need to have guidance.
That's what I live for, right? And I think that I really agree with what you're saying about like we need a seat at the table, and I don't think that regulators are necessarily going to. They're not going to have evil intention, but they don't need to have evil intention to screw everything up badly and throw the baby out with the bathwater just by not knowing what they don't know necessarily, right? But Eric, one other question I have, just from, you know, you mentioned your experience with gamers on Polygon was not, it was kind of, they're very tribal and territorial, and they're very particular about what they know and want, and they're savvy, right? And so, and they come from a world where it's feast or famine, where it's high competition, where it's you know, thrive or die, where you're always on. You got to, if you're a streamer, every minute you're not streaming is a minute you're conceding audience to somebody else. They understand that endemic platform scale matters. Are there going to be hurdles, and how are you planning to overcome them, with Hedera being not necessarily having the largest addressable market for them to create content to and push it out toward, versus, let's say, just Ethereum?
Yeah, I think it's like it's an interesting question, because the reality that I see is that, like, if one major title decided they were going on chain XYZ, like they can take it out of the equation, just any blockchain, that chain would spike in users because the game's building on top of it. I don't think this like maximalism idea. Like, I think people get culty when they make a bunch of money. And frankly, cause I've been there, I totally get it. Like, you have Bitcoin maximalists, you have Ethereum maximalists, and Ethereum's killer because, like, the last two booms
It's
for
actually the
crypto have.
opposite of maximalism. It's actually it's just evolution. It's just statistics. It's egalitarianism. It's not the sense of maximalism, because it's like they won't care about the technical performance of it, because, like, the game isn't, let's face it, the game isn't going to run on a blockchain. The game's going to run on a server that has, like, super high tick rate and optimizations, and you know, centralized CDNs. The Web3, the layers that are blockchain will be hybrid integrations, and that you know, can scale to the the transactional needs or capabilities that they can sustain. But the game itself isn't going to run on a blockchain for a minute. So, like, I think that, you know, there's not going to be a purist when it comes to the mass consumer gamer coming in. I don't think, anyway. And this isn't to slight ℏ_, because ℏ_, I mean, you guys are mostly self-aware that you're David against Goliath right now. But it's that awareness that's going to help to build bridges and create inflows where you might not have expected them or anticipated them, and you don't have to wait for that hopeful big partnership game to come over, because honestly, those, you know, I've seen those exclusives partnerships happen before on, like, the Epic Game Store or the EA launcher or Ubisoft trying to push some Ubisoft platform, and it always works for like 6 months and then just fizzles. But I don't want to see that for Hedera.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, it's almost just like the vast majority of people, like, if you guys have, like, a ledger or a Trezor that you keep your crypto on.
Oh yeah, I'm very I'm in all, I am up in your ledgers. That's kind of my shtick.
Totally. Yeah, me too. I don't think the vast majority of people are going to use those. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see a future where self-custodied assets, like, everybody carries around their USB plug-in so they can validate a transaction, is like in any way a mass adoption appeal. Like, I think it actually caters to a very interesting subset of people who understand crypto. They get it, so they cold store their crypto.
The soulbound NFTs are going to be used more often than anything, right? There's reputation, those NFTs, those tokens that can never be sent and transferred away. They are linked forever to one wallet, but then they can hold data and information and things and do things for, like, anonymized reputation, and, like, so a global leaderboard tracker, for instance. Right? Like, I think that's going to be something gamers really gravitate towards, and using the ledger.
Exactly. Like, I think that this is less of, like, I think it's almost one of these things where if you can make it just feel like like at the marketplace you used in World of Warcraft. When you can just make the gaming experience feel like that and it's on chain, and the marketplace is actually real value assets. Like for me, it seems like the obvious future. Like why would you? What's the alternative? How could you argue against a free market where once you get tired of playing the game, you can take out, you can get out, and you can receive some value from the 1,000, 10,000, 5,000 hours that you spent in a digital world or a metaverse, whatever you want to call it. That's where I see the real power in all this stuff. Where I see the real power is in making it feel just like the games we all grew up playing. Like it's Call of Duty has tokens in it. You buy tokens and you buy skins. It's just one more layer on top of that enables people to transact in that digital environment. So when they're like, "Hey, I'm done with my Warzone career. Like there's a new game I want to go play." They cash out and maybe they make couple $1,000 from what the time they spent there and some of the things they bought, and they were able to recoup some value on that. That's where I see, if we can get there from 10 years from now, I think that'd be a huge success, because I think it's great from a learning perspective. Young people get to learn about these sort of like free market environments, which teaches them a whole bunch of things about life. And on top of that, I think it actually enables you to value your time that you spend in these digital worlds. It's not just a massive time sink that one day you stop doing, or when you go to the next game and you're like, man, I never log into that account anymore, but man, it is like got the coolest skins ever or whatever.
Right.
Hedera's lucky to have you thinking. You are the network thinking about these problems. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Well, let me say hello to Silton. Silton's here from the Zimbali network. And maybe then we can get Charles to ask a question of our guest regarding games. Silton, would you like to say hello?
Hey, I just wanted to say hi. Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting these like wonderful panelists today. I've gotten to know a few of them. Eric Faust is in my cohort with Outlier Ventures. So shout out to Eric. You're killing things.
Shout out to OV. Shout out to the
Shout out
Outlier
to OV.
Ventures team and Jamie and everyone over there. Hi, Rick. Love you guys.
Yeah, you guys, we're just killing it. And then Charles, we met through Twitter, and then we started talking about some of his plans for gaming. He's very ambitious, and so I applaud you for inviting them onto the channel today. And I'm listening and enjoying every minute of it. So thanks.
Oh, thank you, Silton. It's always a pleasure having you. And Charles, would you like to comment on what you're hearing today in the gaming realm?
Yeah, so excited. It's like there's been a lot of really awesome gaming news, gaming partnerships coming out. We just had the oh crap, I forgot the name. We just had that announcement today.
Yeah.
Someone, what
the
name of it?
Ashfall.
Yeah, Ashfall. Holy cow. The experience of those developers is awesome. We got Dropper coming in hot, it's coming together. It's been, there hasn't been too many gamers up here, I want to say, compared to, developers and like executives. And so it's great to hear this. I really feel what some of the stuff you're saying, Eric, about, I had the same kind of like vision. It's like, all these, I played CSGO as well as a longtime World of Warcraft player. And it's just like, man, they could be winning from, just making these, tokens or, giving them value. They could be winning at the same time. But instead they like just ban people trying to sell their characters. That's been a big thing that like, I want to go after as well. But so yeah, totally agreed there. I wanted to ask about, so you were saying it's going to be pretty curated with streamers for a while, or is it always going to be like kind of curated, or are you going to open up the platform eventually? Or, if you could go into your future plans a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we're building out is some like automated technology to enable automated NFT launches. So we do have plans in the medium to long term to say like, hey, we want to enable people to be able to deploy their own collections once they get through an approval process. But I think early on, we're definitely going to curate who's coming on the platform. And I think even in the future, we're going to do things like if it's a streamer, for example, link your Twitch or something like that. And if you have over 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, whatever, then we can determine that, and then you're an approved creator to do drops. Or if you're an esports organization, you can link your Twitter, and then it's like, okay, we know TSM is launching these NFTs, that we don't have to handhold them. So like any technology, at first to be manual, like the old famous Stripe stories, like early days in Stripe, they used to manually process transactions on the phone, for example. Every time somebody made an e-commerce transaction, they call a bunch of different acquiring banks to complete the transaction on their end. So it's very similar to that. Like early on, it's sort of like manually doing it, helping with strategy, doing some of the janky stuff behind the scenes, until there's clear models that people can just come in and execute on. So I think that's how we think about it. And like I said, our strategy is gaming relevant content. So that can be esports, that can be streaming, that can be the actual games themselves. But I think the focus is really, again, on that culture, and then trying to get those culturally relevant people to be doing drops on the platform on Hedera. So that's the way we think about it.
So when
Gotcha.
thank you, Charles. Well, I have a question. When you say that you have 5M on your website, is that $5 million or 5 million HBARs, or is that
basically it's the equivalent of 5 million US that we're going to be giving out in grants for creators, esports orgs, esports players, developers, publishers to come on, so they have an incentive-driven model to come do drops on our platform. The way we think about it, the way we thought about it initially was we were going to go acquire licenses and just do it for them, but it doesn't really work well if you do that. It works much better if they actually have something that they want to do and they're incentivized.
Yes, well, I think going curated makes sense, because you'll be able to form a unit of a group that may interact with each other well. And if you're going along the Stripe model, that turned out to be really successful. So that's a good model to model.
Yeah, and I just mean like every startup. It's kind of like the funny story behind every startup. Like there's janky stuff behind the scenes that one day when they tell like their story, when they're like a unicorn or whatever, that nobody really knows. Like the entrepreneurial spirit is to like just find a way to make it happen behind the scenes and start to scale, right? So that's sort of what I'm trying to say is like we kind of have that ethos or motto within our company, that like we want to kind of like early on do the janky stuff behind the scenes just to make it work, and then once we really figure out the pathways that people want to take, then we can really build out robust automation around that to enable it at a high degree. And if you look at Stripe, from processing transactions on phone calls in early e-commerce days to what they have now, it's quite a different picture.
I wonder if you just tell the community a little bit how the process was in working with the HBAR Foundation for your grant.
Yeah, absolutely. The HBAR Foundation is fantastic. I think the way I think about it is, like they always want to attract, top line projects. There's a whole bunch of incentives for them if they can do that. So from our perspective, working with the HBAR Foundation is great. I got to speak on stage with Alex today. So I think we really get each other in sort of the medium to long term vision. And I just think that the Hashgraph, what Hedera has built, is just a really good use case in gaming. So working with them on a grant was a breeze, because we basically thought a lot about, we thought the same way about a lot of different things. So for us, it was like, if people believe what you believe, you're going to do business together. That's a good ethos just in general. So I think we were really aligned on beliefs, really aligned in vision. So for us, it was great. It was a really simple process for us, and for other people out there trying to get grants. I think it's just an alignment. It's an exercise in alignment. Make sure like what you're trying to do is aligned with what they're trying to accomplish, and if you can do that, then hooray! So it's a win-win-win, and that's the type of scenarios we're trying to create.
That's great to hear. I know that they keep killing it. They announce everything. They announce 2 or 3 new grants every week these days. It's really speeding up. And as I said earlier today on Twitter, the engagement of the videos and the announcements are multiplying 1,000-fold. I mean, we used to get on an HBAR Foundation announcement maybe 1,000 views, and we get like 5,000 in a few hours now. So I think the marketing that Hedera is doing with Austin and now in New York at the NFT NYC is really paying off. Yeah, well, I was at the consensus, and there was certainly a lot of action at the foundation booth and at the Hedera booth in
Yeah,
general.
I think we're gonna need some representation next time. Frankly, I think that's one thing that we can definitely improve on is getting on the floor and getting out there and interacting at a floor level. But yeah, this time around was mainly spent hopping from meeting to meeting to meeting, connecting with different folks who are both excited about what we're doing and looking to see how they can take part in it.
Yeah, there's more coming up. There's the London, and then there's one in Spain, I believe. So there's more opportunities to meet people in the Hedera community at these conferences. So that would be a good thing for everybody to join in. And I'm excited that Hedera is doing 2 events in Europe, one in September in London, I believe, and the other in Spain in November. So the people in the Hedera community that are always saying, I wish you would come over to Europe. Get ready, we're coming over to Europe. So if anyone in the community wants to ask Eric or our panelists any questions, just raise your hand and we'll get you up here. If not, I just want to give everyone an opportunity to have some closing remarks. Before we do a little, after that, there's a little announcement from the community. The Jolly Llama is going to make a little announcement. So, Eric, would you like to leave us with some parting words?
Yeah, I'd just say we're gonna have one of our first sort of inaugural founders drops coming up, ideally by the end of July, pending any technical issues. I always asterisk that because building new technology can be a bit of a challenge. So look for upcoming drop us a follow on Twitter, and I think we'll have some really exciting things to come that. Like I said, involve top games, involve top streamers, involve top esports orgs, all that type of fun stuff as we look to bring them on chain. So super excited. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for learning a little bit about what we're all about, and look forward to seeing you at a future event.
Yeah, well, we're very supportive of you, and if we can do anything in the future to assist you in any way, just the Hedera community is very involved. Everyone should follow Eric and Dropper account. It's at DropperNFT. Is there any kind of Discord or any kind of contact which you would recommend that the Hedera community use, Eric? Or
Yeah, we've got a Discord. If you just follow our over to our Dropper NFT link, it'll bounce you over to our Discord. Or if you go to dropper.gg, I think we have the link there as well. So from if you guys if you want to participate in our community, obviously love to have you. We're trying to build out. I love the H Barbarians. I think that's a lot of fun too. Big fan of that idea. So love to have you guys in our Discord. There's already a bunch of us in there. Hanging out, so feel free to come and join us.
Okay, we definitely will. So much. So I see Patches is in the room. If you want to tell us about your NYC experience, Patches, you can come on up. Let's see. I do want to give. So thank you, Eric and Josh. Thank you so much.
I'll make sure to pop into 1 or 2 more of these as we go here. Thanks. Nice pleasure to meet you guys, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric, so much. Bye-bye. Patches assessment of the NYC experience first. Go ahead, Patches.
For sure, yeah. I just tuned in, thought I could catch some good content. NFT NYC has been very good for Hedera, I think. I was at their booth most of the time after the first day because going to speeches just wasn't worth anyone's time. They were like 15 minutes long. The people on the stage were great, but they just didn't have time to dig into any topic. So I just kind of hovered around the Hedera booth, and it was always packed, never not busy. And that was not typical for all the booths at the event. So I think between the Times Square ads, the way that they communicated through handouts, and their swag was really awesome. I got a good ice cream shirt with the Hedera symbol. But people really resonated with what Hedera's message was, and just continually, again, it was extremely full booth. And I made a lot of really good connections across chain and for some good scalability stuff. So my quick two-minute rundown is that Hedera is doing a much better job marketing Hedera and explaining it, and people are really resonating with the message. So I think they did just a superb, killer job at NFT NYC.
Yeah, I think the branding that they've established is very compelling. With just what they're doing it's much different than last year with all the brown, with the colors and the excitement of the branding. And it must have been awesome seeing all the billboards in Times Squares with your NFTs in it.
Yeah, and I think what's really hard to convey is that it was never sometimes it was the same NFT, but they had 4 or 5 different versions of it. So even though there's videos of them in Times Square, they kind of cycle through all the NFT projects, and it resonated with people to say, hey, not only can you do NFTs on Hedera, but there is a flourishing plethora of all of these different projects. So just because if you do run an NFT project and you didn't see yourself in any of these pictures, it doesn't mean it wasn't actually displayed. I saw at least 6 different versions of that giant wall version that I put up on the first day. And there were some really, like, a Hash Trucks was up there. Like some smaller projects were still getting repped, which was really cool to see. So just, yeah, 2 cents. You might have been in Times Square even if you didn't see a picture of it.
I just was just smiling so much because for all the work that the NFT community and Hedera has been doing these past few months, to be able to see themselves in such billboards, it's very exciting. I know Batty Hattie was excited, and everybody was excited to see their work displayed in such a prominent manner.
Yeah, and again, it did its point, which wasn't, look at Hedera and all the things that Hedera does. It was look at the Hedera NFT community and all the things they've done, and that resonated a lot with a lot of people. So again, just I couldn't the NFT conference, the people who run it did an extremely poor job. But everyone at the booths, all of the attendees from Web3 and all the companies did the exact opposite, and just 100% really, really great job. So it was a really amazing event, and I hope next year that the people that run it take a lot of lessons, because I will also have a giant Twitter thread that goes through the pros and cons of everything I experienced for everyone to see.
Yeah, the NFT LA was not the greatest conference either, but it made up meeting the people that were attending the conference and going to some of the booths that were represented at the conference was much more engaging, as I was thinking, than I went to a couple of talks, but it was just really hard to find the talk and navigate through the conference hall down in LA, and it was also hard in Denver, so it's just that they need to get their legs on with these kind of NFT conferences.
Having 1,500 speakers over 4 days or 3 days is as insane as it sounds. And like, there was 3 amazing NFT creators I really wanted to hear, and they had a really great topic, and it was 15 minutes. And then, like, by the time intros were done, it's 7. It was clear that there was a lot more of a how many people can we get here to money grab as a conference, rather than what content can we do to help the space grow effectively.
Yeah, a conversation's really just getting going at 10 minutes, and then to have it wrap up, you're just doing sound bites at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I did go to one today that was Hedera sponsored, and I think it was like 30 minutes, and that was a really good one. But I stopped going to any speech that was under 30 minutes because it's just not worth it.
Okay. Well, really great spaces today. So I'm going to end the space as we always do with thank you, everybody. And we'll do this again next Thursday. And hello, future. Ending this space.